But we do need to give some flowers to the current staff members at West Virginia.
Yes. Yeah.
And the outgoing head coach and Wren Baker for what they have done to nail down this 2025 signing class that everybody thought was going to fall apart. I mean, and and fairly, right? Because we didn't have a head coach, right on the eve of signing day. Lo and behold, they go out and land 21. They sign, not just commit, sign 21 guys. Only lost 3. I think they got 3 guys that didn't sign that had committed, but they flipped 2.
Yeah.
And went out and got 1 that was not committed. So, and oh, by the way, he was a 4-star.
Yeah.
And the one they flipped was a high 3-star that was highly recruited by a lot of other Power 4 schools. Just an absolutely marvelous job of this staff. Trey Nair and his recruiting staff, all the assistant coaches. And again, Wren, I think he got on the phone with a few of them himself, and he gave them the directive, look, you guys do well by West Virginia University, and we'll do well by you. And they took that to heart, and they did it. They showed integrity. They showed the kind of character they have by doing what they did, because they didn't have, they could have mailed it in or just did it halfway and moved on to their next opportunity, knowing that Neal would probably hire him wherever he went, right?
Yep.
But they didn't do that,
Yeah.
So just what are your thoughts? I don't want to ramble.
Yeah.
What are your initial thoughts on that?
Just remarkable, honestly, Couz. So for those that don't know, I've been around the recruiting world for West Virginia for a long time. I mean, we're talking all the way back to the Taj Boyd, Logan Hasty, to the William Crest days. Yes, I'm that old. The light does a pretty good job of hiding some of this gray, but I am that old.
That's why I just shave it off.
So, I'm getting there. So I haven't covered as much in depth over the last 4 or 5 years, just personal job and stuff has kind of pulled me away from that. But I've been around it for a long time. I think what we saw this National Signing Day for West Virginia could possibly be one of the most remarkable things I have ever seen. And I don't say that lightly. In what we would probably deem the most awkward or inconvenient or whatever word you want to input there of scenarios for this staff and the recruiting staff to be met with some fate of Neal Brown on Sunday, and quite frankly not know their own fate about where they're going to be, to actively engage themselves in these young men, to still convince them in a vision, and to finish the job is impressive. Is probably not even a strong enough of a word. It's remarkable, and they deserve a ton of credit for that. As of National Signing Day, there were a couple, as you said, there were a couple of commitments that backed off that after Neal's firing.
Mm-hmm.
But when you woke up on signing day, you had 19 kids committed, and all 19 signed.
Mm-hmm.
To flip somebody without a head coach to steal, I guess at one point, the Dwayne Galloway Jr., a 4-star kid, was committed to Purdue. So if you want to consider that a flip, to hold on to kids, just unbelievably impressive. Their efforts, Wren Baker's efforts, who made himself available to talk to these players. It just was fascinating to see, really. If you look at other schools in similar situations, you take a look at North Carolina, you take a look at Purdue, and you take a look at, I think it was Central Florida. I want to be careful with this stat because I might get it wrong, but I saw today, it felt like around lunchtime, around noon, almost at noon o'clock. It's been a long day. Somewhere around noon on signing day, Keenan Cummings at Rivals had put out a tweet that, to the effect, said Central Florida, Purdue and North Carolina had only signed like 4, 5, 6 kids.
I've got the numbers in front of me, or I can get them up.
Yeah. And so I thought when I saw that while you're pulling that up, I thought to myself, that just speaks even louder volumes to the job and the effort and the vision that this staff did. But West Virginia at that time was probably 15, 17 kids in. These other schools in similar situations had 4, 5, and 6. Just impressive.
The UCF ended up signing 13.
Okay.
They have the lowest rated class in the Big 12. West Virginia ended with the 6th highest rated class this is according to 24/7 Sports, by the way.
Yeah.
Rivals may be slightly different, but they have it that 6th rated class in the Big 12 with 21 commits, 2 3-stars. They had a normal signing class, just like their program was stable and everything was normal.
Yeah. And some of these, they were able to hold on to a defensive lineman, Taylor Brown, out of Maryland. I think he was a 4-star. He was the highest rated kid in the class. There was an offensive lineman again, Eidan Buchanan.
Yep.
Michigan wanted him up until the day before signing day. And Couz, I just don't know how much credit we can give this staff that without a head coach. And I want to pause there too, and I want to say something because we've talked about this. Our displeasure with Neal Brown was always performance related on the field. It was wins and losses. We've stated that. I don't need to go back into that again. But by all accounts, one of Neal's last messages to everybody, including that, is finish the job.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that just speaks a ton of class to him, that he was engaged,
yep.
literally even after the fact of probably hearing about his termination, that he was on him to get these young men to West Virginia. So kudos to him as well. But just a tremendous job by this staff to get. And then obviously there'll be another signing period in February. By that time, I would expect West Virginia, I would hope, to have a head coach by then. And that would be extremely portal heavy, I'm sure, at that time.
Yeah.
But just a great group of young men to add to give the next coach something to work with.
Yeah. And we're not going to talk about every signee, but we'll talk about a few of them in a minute. But to keep, I pulled up the numbers. I told you UCF where they were. North Carolina only got 9 commits today.
Yeah. I mean,
they're dead last in the ACC. They had a worse day than UCF.
So that's dead last in the Big 12 and dead last in the ACC.
Yep. Now let's look at Purdue.
And I would imagine
dead last in the Big 10, 8 commits.
I mean,
they were the worst of the 4.
What's that? 13, 9, and 8. Dead last. Okay, so UCF had 13. West Virginia had 19. North Carolina had 9. West Virginia 19. Purdue had 8. West Virginia 19. Dead last in the Big 12. Dead last in the ACC. Dead last in the Big 10. And West Virginia finished
6th in the Big
12. 247.
Yeah.
I mean, I could sit here
with
and
an overall
ramble.
Score of over 203.
Yeah. And so I could sit here and ramble about my thoughts on it. But I think at that point, the numbers speak to itself of how just unbelievably remarkable that staff at West Virginia did.
And West Virginia was 41st nationally, by the way, for those who are wondering.
Wow.
Hats off to
TCU. Which was going to put them right on target where they were.
That's about where they are annual. I mean, they're always anywhere from 30 to 30th to 50th somewhere, typically.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
Very, very rarely do they get out of the 40s, but they're normally 30, 40, maybe 45, somewhere in there. TCU had the best class in the Big 12 at 23rd and nationally.
Wow.
So that was impressive. But they had 30. They signed 30 guys.
There you go.
In all fairness.
Yeah.
Next in the Big 12 was Baylor. They were 34th nationally. signed 21.
Okay.
Kansas State right behind him at 35th nationally, signed 25. Colorado at 37th, only signed 14, but they had 6 4-stars to help that number. Utah at 38. Man, the Big 12 was just so daggone even. Utah had 38, 23 signees, 3 4-stars. And then you go down to 41. There's West Virginia, 21. It says 2 4-stars, but when you click over on the team ratings, it's showing 3. So I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I'm not sure which it is. I think there might be a little bit of a typo here on one of these pages, but yeah, just impressive, man. I mean, can't say enough about the staff and Neal and Ren and all them. Is there one? Let's talk about Galloway, for Dwayne Galloway. You mentioned him earlier.
Yeah.
He's the 4-star he had previously committed to Purdue and then uncommitted, and then didn't commit to anybody until, recommit to anybody until today when he signed with the Mountaineers.
Yeah.
He's really fast for one, but what else stands out about him?
Yeah, I pulled a little bit of stuff up on him, Couz. 16 touchdowns and finished with almost 1,500 all-purpose yards. 247 and ESPN both had him as a 4-star player. But again, like a lot of these athletes in high school, played both ways. 37 tackles, 2 interceptions. Did have one of those interceptions was a touchdown return. So, yeah, extremely, extremely fast. I thought it was pretty interesting. ESPN tabbed him as the number 9 player in Ohio. And I think everybody thinks that Ohio's got some pretty darn good high school football players. Yeah. So when you're inside the top 10 in the state of Ohio, that's a pretty good get right there.
24/7 has him at 10, and they have him 28th nationally at his position.
Yeah.
4-star. They said he runs. I was listening to Chris Anderson's interview with Trey Nair earlier, and he runs a sub. He ran a 10, like a 10 400-meter dash or something insane number.
Yeah. According to the official WSports.com, the West Virginia release, they have him at a 4.3 40-yard dash, and that's per WU Sports.
Yeah. So he may go in. Right now, Dom Collins is probably the fastest on the team. I don't know that he's ever been timed with a laser, but he ran a 4.25-ish with a non-laser, hand timing, but that's not usually quite as accurate. But he ran like a 10.8 in the 100. So these two guys are,
give me some Dwayne Galloway Jr. and Dom Collins returning some kicks next year in Morgantown, baby.
The cool thing about Galloway, he's going to be a defensive back. He's 6'1", so he's that longer defensive back that they like to get. I like that about him. He's about 170. I think he's physically, if you look at him physically, he's probably ready to play now physically.
Yeah.
I think, and a matter of fact, that's one of the things that attracted him to West Virginia. I was reading a little bit about him. He thinks he can come in and have a chance to play, on day one. And that was one of the reasons he knew that West Virginia needed help back there. He knew in the secondary, he knew that they were losing some guys and that they had struggled there. So he saw an opportunity, right? So, and speaking of which, they signed 6 DBs today. That was the one position. They signed more DBs than any other position. So they went heavy in the secondary. And then a couple other 4-stars. The other one is one of the other ones is Taylor Brown, a defensive lineman out of Marlboro, Maryland. Upper Marlboro, Maryland, Dr. Henry Wise High School. 6'3", 250. D lineman. Looks like he might need to put on a little bit of weight, unless they plan on playing him at maybe a edge rusher. I don't know. But 93. He's the highest rated recruit in the class, according to 24/7.
Yeah.
With a 93. What do you know about him?
Yeah, really fast. Be curious to see what they do with him going forward. I think real fast and athletic. I think maybe be interested to see a little bit more from 247 on that. I think they're really intrigued by what he can do athletically and just the growth and the potential that's there for him. And so, be curious to see what this next staff, whoever that may be, when they come in, see what they do with him. Really good. I'll tell you somebody I was impressed with too, though, Couz, was that they got their quarterback, Scotty Fox.
Yes. Yeah. Let's talk about him.
He, everybody wants to talk about the quarterback, and I don't know where West Virginia goes at quarterback. There's so much uncertainty around the entire program. But speaking of players in Ohio, 247 and On3 had him as the number 13 player in the state of Ohio and the number 8 dual threat quarterback in the nation. So that's high praise. Over 3,000 total yards of offense, almost 2,800 yards passing, over 64% completion percentage. So, and he's big, 6'2", 205. So almost kind of reminds you, I want to be careful here, a little bit of Garrett Green, but a bigger version. Been a dual threat, been able to run and throw. But at 6'2", 205, he's obviously got the frame to build a little bit of bulk on there. So
absolutely,
that's a position, if not all of them are a little uncertain, that's one where there is some curiosity there. So a good point of entry there for the next coach to come in and see him as a quarterback on the roster for sure.
Yeah. And there was, if I'm not mistaken, he posted on his X account a few weeks back, Jonathan, that one of the other outlets actually upped him to a 4-star.
Okay. Yeah.
I think it was him. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure it was him. It wasn't 24/7, but I think one of the other ones may have bumped him up to a 4-star recruit. But either way, I mean, I really like what I see from him. Like you said, a dual threat, but I think he throws the ball a lot more. Garrett came out of high school. He played in more of an option type offense. Yeah. Really didn't learn how to read defenses. I think Scotty's had to throw the ball more in high school. So he should come in a little bit more ahead of the game, so to speak.
I agree with that, but really athletic.
Correct.
But really athletic and can run if he needs to. So, gosh darn, they almost kind of look alike, weirdly enough. So, but I think West Virginia had really focused on. You talked about the defensive backs. They knew going into it that was an area of need as you started to build within the program. Offensive linemen, you've got guys that so some old boys that are tall and big and they like the future of them. West Virginia's done really well at developing linemen in that program. Credit to Matt Moore and those guys there. You got your quarterback, you got your athleticism on the defensive line. So overall, I think you've got a few guys that really just jump out at you and say, I can make some impact. And you've got some guys like you do in every single class that says, hey, in a couple of years, we can develop. And they're excited there. So overall, just really impressed with what they were able to pull off this class and who they were able to keep and who they were able to steal.
How about this young man? Eidan Buchanan from Good Counsel, same high school as Kyle Altuner, by the way, the lineman who signed in the 24 class. Listen to these numbers: 6'8". Now Trey Nair says he's actually 6'9", not 6'8". 310. Now I think they said today he's more like 330.
Yeah.
So you got 6'9", 330 offensive lineman. Just a massive individual. And now he's only rated as a 3-star, 86th grade, but Michigan was trying really, really hard to flip this kid.
Yeah.
And he didn't bite. He
didn't bite. And if you know anything at all about high school football, you know that Good Counsel program. They churn them. Churn them. That's a good program to be in. That's a good program to have your foot in the door, if you will. And so, he's somebody that is really special. The WU Sports has him listed at 6'9", 330 pounds.
Okay.
That's a big boy.
Daggone right it is. Holy cow.
That's a big boy.
Jeez. Sean Martin is 6'5" or 6'6", 290, right?
Yeah.
So imagine how big this young man is. Holy cow.
And his teammate also signed, right?
Yeah. That's perfect. That's where I was going next.
Yeah.
Gavin Crawford.
He's a little bit smaller. He's 6'3", 330. I don't know what happened to him. Yeah. But again, it goes, if you're getting, that goes to the Good Counsel program, and you'd said they've already got they've got one on the team in Kyle Altuner. So that's a program you're able to make headway in, and you've been able to make headway in. So, the camaraderie there, the relationships just makes that transition a little bit easier. So good to see West Virginia continue in that tradition of getting good quality offensive linemen that can grow in the program.
Yeah. And the other 4-star that they signed was Jaleel Hall, a wide receiver out of Monsignor Bonner High School in Drexel Hill, Pennsylvania, 6'4", 185 pounds, according to 24/7, a 90 grade. They have him listed as a top 10 player in the state of PA, and number 45 overall wide receiver in the country. So, and he's again, he's long at 6'4".
Mm-hmm.
They got him. I see a theme here. They like guys that are 6 foot or up. Unless you're a running back.
Yeah.
Or a safety.
Yeah. Averaged almost 18 yards per catch. So what that tells me is he's using that height a little bit too, and he's not just and at that size, he's probably not just somebody that's catching a screen pass and running. So I like to see that versatility. Almost 70 yards per game receiving, 600 yards as a senior receiving, and you want to be careful on some of those stats too, because you don't know if he's playing in a run oriented offense in high school or how they're doing it. But I like the size out of him as well. Yeah,
and they did. I do want to touch on this. They did get the top 2 players in the state of West Virginia. They got Zay Jackson out of Huntington High School, a 5'10" corner, 5'10", 180. So they landed him, and they also got Tyshawn Dews, who was actually there. If I remember, he was their very first verbal commit for this class.
Yeah, out
of Hurricane High School, a wide receiver, 5'10", 171, about the same size as Jackson, but just on the other side of the ball. Jackson was the number 1 rated player in the state of West Virginia. Dews is number 2 rated player in the state of West Virginia. 2 very talented young men that are going to, hopefully, make an impact for this Mountaineer team.
Yeah, this is pretty interesting here. 5'10", 175, runs a 4.48 40, 4.19 shuttle, a 33-inch vertical, and bench presses 275 pounds.
You're talking about Dews?
Yeah.
He's dad. I follow his dad on social media, and his dad's actually a trainer, physical trainer for football, for high school football players. Does a lot of work with them and stuff, and he's really, really active. And of course, Tyshawn gets the benefit of that. And by the way, he has a younger brother.
Yeah,
maybe even better than him.
Yeah,
and I can't remember his name, Jonathan. You may know it, but
I've seen some highlights and some video. I'd have to go back and look at it, but it runs in the family apparently.
Yeah, he's really good as well. So, but I think he plays I think he'll be playing more. I think he's planning to play on the other side of the ball, if I'm not mistaken. But anyway, this we don't need to, like I said, we're not going to go every single guy, but I did want to touch on a few of the highlights. But overall, they ended up with 6 DBs, 5 defensive linemen, a tight end, 5 O linemen, 2 receivers, 1 running back, 1 quarterback. And then state breakdown, you got 6 from Ohio, 4 from Florida, 4 from Maryland, 2 from Pennsylvania, 2 from West Virginia, a Georgia, 1 Tennessee, and 1 Wisconsin. So that's kind of the breakdown from the 24/7 sports site there. I won't see who the Wisconsin guy is. That's kind of an unusual state.
It's tight end.
Jackson Acquarty, the tight end. Yep. 6'7", 225. You had it, man. You were right on top of it. Yeah. And they landed the 3 fastest players from the state of Ohio, I think is what Javon Collin or one of the coaches put on their Twitter account today.
Just overall a good mix, a good balance. And again, considering the circumstances, shows a lot of character on the men and women in the offices that were working it. And they did a really fine job of keeping us together. And I don't know where those coaches end up, if it's at West Virginia or if it's somewhere else. But I think next year or in a year or two, when one of those players makes a huge play on the field, you need to look back and remember that those coaches and underneath tough circumstances did the work for you when they didn't have to, and be appreciative of that.
Now, and look, we all know these kids can transfer if they want to later on down the road, maybe even this year, right? If the new coach comes in, they don't like them, they can hit the portal.
Yep.
No, these national letters of intent don't mean near as much as they used to. But still, when you look, like we talked, when you look at what they did compared to the other 3 schools that don't have coaches, remarkable.
Yep.
I mean, Chris, you talked about all the years you've been covering it. Chris Anderson over at 24/7 said the same thing. He's never seen anything like this in his entire career covering recruiting ever.
Yeah.
So just got to tip your cap to him. And I really hope that the new coach, whoever it may be, gives them a chance, this recruiting staff a chance to stay on, because they knocked it out of the park.
Yep, I completely agree.